You know that feeling when you're scrolling through endless car audio forums, trying to convince yourself that the next big upgrade is worth the cash, but every comment ends up sounding like a sales pitch? I was there last week, sitting in my garage with my old stock head unit, wondering if a new amp and subwoofer would finally give me that low-end thump without turning my daily commute into a concert hall. I've been digging through the Alpine lineup, watching install videos, and even talking to a few friends who already have their rigs tuned, just to make sure I'm not throwing money at a mismatch. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Alpine's S2A55V 5-channel amplifier paired with the S2SB12V 12-inch Halo Preloaded, ported subwoofer is marketed as a complete solution for people who want serious bass without having to hunt down separate components. The idea is simple. You get a compact amp that can power your speakers, tweeters, and the sub in one chassis, plus a sub-enclosure that's already tuned and ready to bolt in. That sounds perfect on paper, especially if you're like me, someone who wants decent sound but doesn't want to spend weekends wiring separate boxes and fiddling with crossover settings. First, let's talk about who actually benefits from this bundle. If you have a mid-size sedan or a compact SUV with a decent amount of trunk space, and you've already upgraded your head unit to something that can send a clean RCA signal, the Alpine combo makes sense. The 5-channel amp means you can keep your front door speakers, rear door speakers, and a pair of tweeters all powered from a single unit, freeing up space under the dash for other things like a phone mount or a small cooler. The preloaded sub, on the other hand, saves you the headache of buying a separate box, finding the right size, and then stuffing a sub into it. The ported design gives you that deep, resonant boom you hear on a highway passby, which is exactly what most people want for that feel the music moment. Now, if you're driving a large truck or a van with a cavernous cargo area, you might find the 12-inch sub a bit underwhelming. Alpine does a good job with the port tuning, but the size of the enclosure limits how much air can move, so you won't get the same ground-shaking impact you'd see from a 15-inch or 18-inch custom box. Likewise, if you're a hardcore audiophile who spends weekends fine-tuning every decibel and loves swapping out different subs to chase that perfect low-end response, the preloaded nature of this sub could feel restrictive. The internal wiring and crossover are already set, which is great for simplicity but not ideal if you love to experiment. One of the practical strengths of the S2A55V amp is its Class D efficiency. In a car where every watt counts toward the battery load, this amp runs cooler and draws less power than many older Class AB units. I installed it in my 2018 Civic, and the factory battery handled it without any additional battery support. The amp also offers a built-in low-pass filter for the sub-channel, which means you don't need an external crossover to keep the mid-range speakers clean. In my own testing, the sub stayed nicely locked under 80 Hz, leaving the front doors crisp for vocals and guitars, while the rear doors filled out with a solid, controlled bass. The downside, however, is that the amp's gain controls are a bit all-or-nothing. The knobs have a relatively short travel, so dialing in the perfect level can be a bit of a guessing game, especially if you're trying to match it with a head unit that already has its own gain settings. I ended up using the factory auto gain function on my head unit and then just nudging the amp's knobs a notch or two. It works, but it's not as precise as a dedicated gain-adjustable amp that offers fine increments. That's something to keep in mind if you're particular about matching levels across different speakers. Installation is where the bundle really shines. The amp's dimensions are modest, roughly the size of a small shoebox, so it slides into a standard dash kit without any custom brackets. The wiring harnesses are pre-matched to Alpine's own speaker lines, which saved me about an hour of hunting for the right connectors. The sub, being preloaded, only needed a few bolts to secure it to the trunk floor and a single power cable run. I was able to get everything wired up in under 2 hours, which is impressive compared to the days-long process of ordering a separate sub-box, drilling holes, and figuring out port tuning on my own. If you're the kind of person who wants to get a decent upgrade done over a weekend, this package respects that time constraint. On the flip side, the preloaded sub means you're locked into Alpine's internal crossover and amplifier settings for that enclosure. If you ever wanted to move the sub to a different box, swap it for a larger one, or integrate it into a more complex multi-sub.